Something in you recognized the title before you finished reading it. Not intellectually, something lower than that. Some part of you that's been watching you for years, waiting for someone to say it out loud. So here it is. You're addicted to chaos, and you've become skilled at hiding that addiction behind stories about bad luck, like, "I don't know why this keeps happening to me," and explanations rooted in circumstance, timing, and other people's choices. But you do know. Beneath the confusion and genuine exhaustion, some part of you is aware. The chaos isn't happening to you. You are creating it, feeding it, walking toward it with open arms, like greeting a relative you can't stand, but can't stop calling. Most people ask why bad things keep happening to them. That's the comfortable question. The real, harder question is, why does your brain treat the absence of chaos as a threat? Because it does, and until you understand why, you'll keep recreating the fire, and then wondering why you keep getting burned. Let's start with recognition. Understanding follows afterward. It's Tuesday. Nothing is wrong. Work is okay. Nothing great, but okay. Your relationship has been stable for 3 weeks. No big fights, no cold silences, just two people coexisting without issues. Your health is fine. Your friends are fine. And you feel miserable. Not dramatically miserable, just itchy, restless in a way you can't quite pinpoint, like wearing a sweater that's slightly the wrong size. You pick up your phone, then put it down. You reread a text from your friend sent yesterday. A totally normal message. Sounds good, see you then. A second time, then a third. You're searching for something in it, some nuance in tone, some sign of a problem. You find one. You make one up. You text another friend. Does it seem like Sarah's been weird with me lately? Sarah isn't weird with you. You know that. But now, there's something to track, a conversation to monitor, something to watch. And somehow, that makes you feel a little better. That's the pattern. Here's another version. You've been seeing someone for 4 months. It's the healthiest relationship you've had in years, maybe ever. They communicate openly. They follow through. They don't go silent for days. They don't weaponize your insecurities. By every measure you've wanted, they're genuinely a good partner. And still, something about it makes you want to flip the table. One night, an ordinary night with no clear trigger, you say something. You know before the words leave your mouth that they'll land badly. You say them anyway, not because you truly mean them, but because you need to test the relationship under pressure. You need to see if it can hold. The fight ensues. You apologize the next day, and you mean it, but underneath the guilt lies something you're reluctant to face directly. During that fight, during the worst moments, you felt more awake than you had all week. And one more. You've been working towards something for months. A promotion, a project, a health goal. You're close. The work is paying off. The finish line is visible. And then you stop. Not dramatically. You simply let it drift away. Miss one session, then another. Stop responding to emails that could push it forward. 6 weeks later, you look up and see the momentum has disappeared. You tell yourself a story explaining why. You were overwhelmed. The timing wasn't right. Something external shifted. The story sounds convincing. It might even be partly true. But beneath it all is something you haven't examined. Something that sounds like, getting it meant I could lose it. Losing it after I get it feels unbearable. Losing it before, at least, feels familiar. At least that's how I know I can survive. These aren't separate problems. They're the same problem dressed differently. Your brain wasn't built for happiness. Self-improvement culture has been misleading you about this for years. Happiness isn't a default state being blocked by your problems. It's not your natural state being interrupted by stress or a poor morning routine. Your brain is wired for survival. And survival has never, in the entire history of humanity, looked like contentment. Survival appears as scanning, monitoring. Threat detection runs constantly in the background. Your brain has a system called the reticular activating system, whose job is to decide what gets your attention. By default, it's tuned to novelty and threats, not comfort or stability. When everything is truly calm, this system doesn't settle down. It scans more intensely. It begins to generate problems because its job is to find them. If you've ever experienced things going well and immediately started looking for what's wrong, that's not pessimism. That's this system performing exactly as it was designed. Beneath it lies the dopamine system, and this is where people often get confused. Dopamine isn't the pleasure chemical. Pop culture has misunderstood this and repeated the mistake. Dopamine is the anticipation chemical. It fires hardest during the uncertain phase before you discover if you'll get what you want. The not knowing. The possibility that things could go either way. This is why a slot machine is more neurologically captivating than a vending machine. The vending machine gives you what you paid for predictably. That's useless to your dopamine system. The slot machine might pay out, or it might not. That gap, that charged, uncertain moment, is where dopamine floods. Drama functions the same way. When a fight is brewing, a text is left unread, an issue remains unresolved, your brain lights up, alert, engaged, operating at what feels physically like full capacity. When everything is fine, dopamine drops, and a dopamine drop doesn't feel like rest. It feels like withdrawal, like the color draining from everything, like the volume turning down on your life. So, your brain, doing what brains do, begins to chase the next hit, and it's learned through years of reinforcement, exactly where to find it. Think about the last time you faced a real problem, something consuming and unresolved. You replayed the conversation, ran through scenarios, thought about it at 3 a.m., and underneath the genuine distress, if you're honest, there was something else, something almost like fuel, a feeling of being alive and purposeful. That's the dopamine system doing its job. The problem is, you're running a system designed for an environment that no longer exists. The same neural architecture that kept your ancestors alert on the savannah now influences you to pick fights with your partner on a Wednesday night because your nervous system hasn't encountered anything new since the weekend. That map wasn't drawn by choice. It was shaped by experience, early, repeated, bodily experience. The body doesn't update its maps easily. It doesn't respond to reasoning, insight, or a proper intellectual understanding of dopamine. Instead, it responds to accumulated evidence, and it takes a lot of evidence to revise a map created in childhood. If you grew up in a turbulent environment, emotionally, physically, financially, your nervous system did something both smart and damaging. It adapted. It learned to operate in a state of constant readiness, because, in that environment, calm wasn't safety. Calm was just the pause before the next crisis. What happened right before your parent returned in a bad mood, before the money ran out, or before an unresolved fight finally exploded. So, your nervous system calibrated itself to high alert as its default, not as a mood, but as what feels normal in the body. Picture this. You're 7 years old. Dinner is quiet, uneventful. Your parent's face shifts subtly, a tightening, a distance that wasn't there before. Most people wouldn't notice. You notice before you even realize you've noticed, because you've studied that face for years. Because that face is weather, and you're the only meteorologist in this house, and getting the forecast wrong has consequences. You don't finish your food. Your stomach closes. Something is coming. That child grows up, gets their own apartment, and builds a life that looks reasonably okay from the outside. They enter relationships, take jobs, and try to be stable and functional. But the meteorologist never clocks out. The body doesn't get the memo that the weather has changed. So, in a relationship with someone who's genuinely safe, their ordinary quietness still reads as a shifting face. Their contentment still feels like the pause before a storm. Their good mood seems like data to mistrust, because the map says calm precedes the storm. This is chronic hyperarousal. People carrying it often don't see it as unusual, because it has never felt unusual. It's the water they swim in. What they do recognize, quickly and instinctively, is what happens when they meet someone else running at the same frequency, a volatile partner, a drama-filled friendship, a workplace in constant crisis. They recognize it the way you recognize your native language in a foreign country. I know this. Not because they enjoy it, but because they know the terrain. Having a map of a war zone is less terrifying than having no map at all. Researchers call it repetition compulsion. The painful patterns of the past repeat, not out of self-destruction or stupidity, but because they're familiar and manageable. Known pain has a shape. Known pain doesn't require trust. For those raised in a household that didn't earn trust, trust feels like exposure standing in the open with no cover. Better to burn the bridge yourself. At least then, you control the moment. All this so far describes mechanisms, the machinery, the how. But beneath the how lies a question that drives everything. Who are you without the chaos? For many, at some point, chaos stops being merely something that happens to them. It becomes part of who they are, the backbone of their identity. You might know this person, or be this person. They always have something going on. Their life is perpetually complicated in ways that make for interesting stories. People check on them. They give good advice in crises because they're always usefully in the middle of one. They walk into a room and command attention because there's always a situation, a story, something that needs processing. There's a real payoff, attention, connection, purpose, a reason to reach out that doesn't require vulnerability, just the action of reaching out itself, a sense of importance, a role. When the drama is the story, you're always the main character. What was the alternative? For many who build their identity around chaos, it was invisibility. They weren't seen during quiet moments. The attention came during the crisis, the time when their parents stopped and actually looked, when the phone rang, when they mattered. So, they learned that crisis equals presence. Intensity equals realness. Stillness equals disappearance. Decades later, when things are genuinely okay, no crisis, nothing to report, a strange feeling arises. It's not quite loneliness, but something more fundamental. It's a sense of not quite existing, of being a person in a room no one's watching. People caught in this pattern often have remarkable self-awareness. They can describe the dynamic in real time. I know I'm picking this fight for no reason. I know this relationship is bad for me, and I can't stop going back. I know I'm blowing this up. I see myself doing it. They understand, and they do it anyway. The awareness is located in the prefrontal cortex, the logical, language-focused part of the brain that writes journal entries and makes clear observations about its own dysfunction. However, the pattern exists elsewhere. The body, in the amygdala, and in the older, quicker, pre-verbal areas of the brain that formed before speech and language. These areas don't communicate insights. They communicate through urges, compulsions, the felt sense of wrongness when things are actually right, and rightness when things are wrong. Knowing why you do something isn't the same as being able to stop. There's a part of this conversation that almost never gets addressed. What if the chaos is also working for you? Not just in the past, but actively right now. The hypervigilance from a nervous system built for chaos can sometimes grant people extraordinary skills. They can read a room with almost unsettling accuracy, follow multiple emotional currents at once, stay functional, while others fall apart because they learned early to adapt around chaos. They find cracks and angles in situations that others miss. Many creative individuals understand this. Some have gone through therapy, put in the effort, and started to settle. Yet, then they hit an unexpected wall. The stillness feels like death. Literally, not just metaphorically. Their creative drive seems to go cold, as if something has been turned off and they don't know how to turn it back on. Some pause and return to chaos, better a messy work life than one that's organized but empty. This fear isn't irrational. Chaos does generate intensity. The real question is whether you choose the intensity or if it chooses you. There's a difference between an artist who intentionally works with darkness and one who is simply drowning in it. One has a relationship with difficult material. The other is consumed by it. The former can set the darkness aside, walk away, nourish themselves, sleep, and be present with loved ones. The latter cannot. Chaos-dependent nervous systems can't put it down. They pick it up again, creating it even when it's gone. They lack access to intensity on demand, leaving them at its mercy. You can't build something lasting when you're subject to it. You can only react, survive, and respond. Your body bears the toll. Chronically high cortisol levels, the stress hormone produced by a nervous system in constant alert, are not just a mood. They are a physiological state with real consequences, disrupting sleep architecture even when you sleep 8 hours, suppressing immune function, causing systemic inflammation, and increasing risks of anxiety, digestive issues, and heart disease. You're not tired because life is busy. You're tired because your body has been stuck in threat mode for years without proper rest, burning fuel it doesn't have time to replenish. Your relationships suffer too. People who are genuinely safe, consistent, and reliable are often misunderstood as boring or suspicious. Those closest to you, the ones you keep returning to, often match your chaos unpredictable in ways that feel familiar, making you work for their attention, creating enough uncertainty to keep your system active. Some call these relationships passionate. Sometimes they are. Other times, they're just two dysregulated nervous systems recognizing each other across a room and mistaking that for electricity. And the most painful cost, your potential. Chronic chaos doesn't destroy your capabilities. It redirects them entirely toward maintenance. You're often highly intelligent, perceptive, and adaptable traits that people raised in stable environments might not have, and you can see and handle things others cannot. Yet, you're investing those gifts into merely surviving your own life. There are moments usually when the chaos subsides, when you catch a glimpse of what you might build if you weren't always putting out fires. You can feel its shape. That glimpse is cruel because you know it's real, but then, the next wave pulls you back. There's no quick fix, no three-step system, no supplement or morning routine that can recalibrate a nervous system trained over decades to chaos. What exists is a real path one that demands time and genuine discomfort. The first step is to observe this pattern without turning it into a new identity. Don't build a story around being someone with a chaotic nervous system. Instead, identify the mechanism clearly enough to observe it in real time. Saying, "My nervous system is looking for a threat right now," or "I'm about to create conflict because the calm has lasted too long," helps. Recognize that it's just behavior, and naming it creates a small space between you and that behavior. This space allows for choice. The second step involves deliberately sitting in low stimulation without fleeing from it. Just 10 minutes. No phone, no podcast, no problem to solve. When restlessness appears, and it will appear quickly and loudly, the goal is not to resolve or distract from it, but to stay present. This is a form of exposure therapy for your nervous system. Over time, session by session, you gather evidence that low stimulation is survivable and that nothing terrible happens in the quiet. Your system learns through experience, not reasoning. Tolerating stillness can't be thought into, it must be experienced. The third step is to seriously question your identity. What would you lose if chaos were gone? Not just stress, but what else? Perhaps the feeling of being interesting, the reason to connect with others, or the identity of having survived things. That might seem worth holding on to. Recognize that change is possible, and it starts by understanding what you are truly risking. And then the harder question, who are you in the quiet? What do you want from the inside of a calm day? Many people caught in this pattern can't answer those questions, not because they're incapable, but because they've never stayed in stillness long enough to find out. The fourth piece, and this one isn't optional for most, get support that works at the level where the pattern actually lives. Like somatic therapy, EMDR, trauma-informed approaches that work in the body, not just the mind. The cortex already knows, it has known for years. The body is the holdout. If access is an obstacle, breathwork and somatic movement have a solid evidence base. They're not replacements for therapy in complex cases, but real tools. And finally, you won't do this perfectly. You'll gain insights and still create chaos. You'll see yourself doing it, narrated in real time, and still be unable to stop. You'll make progress, regress in ways that seem to undo it, and feel defeated. None of that means the path isn't working. That is the path. The calm that a chaotic nervous system fears. The gray, numb, nothing happening version. That's not what regulation feels like. Regulation feels like clarity. The ability to respond instead of react. To see a situation as a whole instead of through a lens of threat. To know what you want and move toward it without destroying everything in the process. It's being able to sit with someone you love without scanning for what they'll do wrong. It's being able to want something without sabotaging it before it can disappoint you. People who do this work aren't less. They're often more present, more capable of genuine intimacy, more able to access the depth and creativity that has always been there but often gets lost in the noise. The chaos wasn't making you more alive, it was making you busier. Busy and alive aren't the same. You've known that on days when the chaos quieted, and you had one clear hour and felt, in it, something close to what you truly are. That's not a glimpse of something beyond reach. It's a preview of what you're moving toward. One question before you finish. When things in your life are truly calm, what happens in your body? Do you settle into it? Or does something start moving, scanning, looking for what's wrong because, surely, something is? The answer isn't a judgment on your character. It's information. And once you can read it, it can guide what you do next. If this resonates, subscribe. Not for tips or quick fixes, but for conversations that change your perspective. New video every week.